All right, so are you ready to dive into something really interesting? Today we're going deep, and I mean deep, into 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Tryin'.
Sounds good to me.
You know, it's funny, when this album dropped,
Yeah.
I don't think many were thinking of it like some profound statement.
Right.
But years later, you can't deny the impact. And for this deep dive, we're going beyond just the music, we're digging into the philosophy baked into this album.
Absolutely. What's always struck me about this album is how it works on these different levels. On the surface, it's classic early 2000s hip hop, but there's this whole other layer, like a philosophy of survival, ambition, even a darkness that people really connected with.
It's like you can bang your head to it, but then you catch a lyric and you're like, hold on, there's some deep stuff in here. But to really get it, we got to rewind, right?
Exactly. Context is key here. Get Rich or Die Tryin' drops in 2003. Think about it. Post 9/11 America, the dot-com bubble just burst. There's this uncertainty in the air.
Okay, so paint the picture for our listener. We're talking about a society that's a little shaken, a little unsure of what's next. How does that impact how this album lands?
It's huge. It takes the album's message and just amplifies it, especially for people who are living those anxieties. Imagine yourself in South Jamaica, Queens, where 50 Cent's from. This isn't about, like, champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
It's way more raw than that.
Way more. This is about survival. Straight up.
And it's not a gimmick, right? I mean, the man gets shot 9 times. That's not some marketing ploy. He lived that get rich or die trying ethos.
100%. That experience isn't just backstory. It's in the music. It's in his voice. He's not rapping about struggle. He's lived it. And that authenticity, that realness, it's powerful, man.
And the title, right? Get rich or die trying. It's such a bold statement. There's no in between, no plan B.
Right. It's like this declaration, no compromise. You see that in tracks like Many Men Wish Death, too. The danger is real, both on the streets and even in the music industry.
You know, hearing you talk about that drive, it reminds me of Nietzsche, the whole Übermensch idea.
Interesting you say that because critics have made that connection. You've got 50 and Nietzsche both kind of saying, screw the rules. But there's a difference. Nietzsche's Übermensch. They want to be above morality. 50 Cent, he's not rejecting street ethics. He's using them to his advantage.
You hear that in how he delivers the lyrics, right? It's cold, calculated, like any emotion that gets in the way is just gone.
Exactly. Take heat. He talks about taking out his rivals, but there's no remorse. It's chilling, that efficiency. Like he's saying, this is what I got to do.
So we've got 50, this driven, almost intimidating figure. But we can't forget the other genius here, Dr. Dre. That production is half the equation. How would you describe how Dre's sound adds to the whole vibe?
Gray's beats on this album, they're minimalist, but so powerful. They push 50 Cent's words forward, like the soundtrack to his ambition.
Yeah, like that montage scene in a movie where everything's on the line.
Yes. And the way Dre uses space within the music, it gives 50's voice room to hit you. Those hard lines hit even harder.
It's like even on a track like in Day Club, which is a party anthem, you still sense that control. It's not just about having fun, it's about being in charge.
You've got it. It's about being at the top, calling the shots. And that leads us to one of the album's most interesting tracks, maybe one of the most complex, PIMP.
All right, let's break down PIMP. It's a huge hit, but also stirred up some controversy. For our listeners who might only know the chorus, how do we even start to unpack what it means within this get rich or die trying world?
PIMP is interesting, right? Like on the surface, it's catchy, a party anthem, almost. But when you look at it through 50's whole philosophy, it becomes about way more than just money or women or whatever.
Yeah, there's definitely more going on there. So for our listeners, what's the deeper meaning?
It's about power. That kind of power that comes from being in control of your own life, even if, and let's be real, even if how you get there isn't exactly, squeaky clean.
So wealth is a tool, not the end goal itself.
You got it. And it's kind of like what that philosopher Hobbes talked about. Remember that whole state of nature thing where it's like everyone's just out for themselves?
Right, total dog-eat-dog world.
Exactly. And PIMP, it's like wealth is the shield against all that chaos. You're not being controlled. You're the one in control.
It's like this dark side of freedom, right? You claw your way to the top, but it's built on, well, some pretty rough stuff.
Yeah. And it shows how complex 50's view is. Because as much as Get Rich or Die Tryin' is about being tough, there are these moments where he lets you see a different side. Like 21 Questions is a perfect example.
Yeah, 21 Questions.
Yeah.
Talk about a track that got people talking.
Right.
Some people thought it was way too soft for an album like this. Looking back, what do you think about that?
I think 21 Questions is important because it's different. It
Yeah.
shows the other side of 50 Cent. Yeah, he's got this tough guy image, but even he's got those moments of doubt, those times when he wants something real.
Like even the toughest dude has a heart, you know?
Exactly. And the way he shows that vulnerability, it's interesting. He doesn't whine about it or anything. It's still very much grounded in his reality.
He's not looking for sympathy. It's more like he's testing the waters.
Hmm.
Can love even survive in this world he's built?
And that's a question a lot of people can relate to, right? It makes you think, can you ever really leave your past behind?
Okay, so you've got this ambition, the survival instinct, and even some vulnerability mixed in. But musically, how does 21 Questions fit into all of this? We're talking about a song that samples Barry White. That's a bold move for a guy like 50 Cent.
It's brilliant though, right? Dre takes this smooth, romantic Barry White track, I'm gonna love you, just a little more baby, I think it is, and flips it completely.
It's like you heard that song and thought, I can do something totally different with this.
Right. Like the original is all smooth, but Dre slows it down, adds these piano chords, these echoing
It
sounds.
totally changes the mood. Like you said, haunting, almost sad, especially with 50's lyrics over it.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like he's taking this classic love song and using it to explore if tenderness can even exist in this world that can be so harsh.
And you know what's interesting? Even when he's being vulnerable, 50 Cent never loses control.
Mm.
It's like even being vulnerable is strategic, calculated, like it's all part of the game.
That's a really good point. And it goes back to what we were saying about the whole album. There are no easy answers in this world, no guarantees.
It's not a fairy tale. It's real life with all its ups and downs.
Mm.
So for our listener, what's the takeaway here? What do we want them to walk away with after going this deep into Get Rich or Die Tryin'? It's not about some perfect ending, right? It's about figuring out life when success, when getting what you want, comes with a price. And it makes you think, was this Get Rich or Die Tryin' thing just a product of 50's time? Like post 9/11 America, everyone was on edge.
Right. Was it the times or something deeper? It's a good question.
Because even now, years later, that whole hustle mentality is everywhere.
It really is.
Uh-huh.
Grind, 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 right? Like you got to be always pushing, never satisfied.
So for our listeners out there, do you think Get Rich or Die Tryin' is a time capsule from that era? Or does it see something timeless about wanting to succeed no matter what?
Probably both, to be honest. It definitely captures that moment in history, but it also hits on something real about ambition, about the choices we make when it feels like everything's on the line.
In 50 Cent, he doesn't sugarcoat it either. The album ends kind of dark, doesn't it?
Yeah, no happy ending there. It's like that feeling of the hustle never really stops. There's always something else to chase, you know?
Like that saying, the journey is the destination, but here the journey is way more intense.
Exactly. And that's what Get Rich or Die Tryin' is all about, isn't it? It's not about the finish line. It's about never slowing down, never accepting less than what you think you deserve.
Even if it means making hard calls, pushing yourself to the edge.
Yeah, it's a tough message, but it makes you think, right?
Definitely. So as we wrap up here, any final thoughts for our listeners? What do you hope they take away from this deep dive into Get Rich or Die Tryin'?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Get Rich or Die Trying, it's more than a cool album title. It's a mindset. You see the challenges, you hustle, and you never, ever lose sight of where you want to be.
It's a reminder that success, it ain't always pretty, but it's always worth going after, on your own terms, of course.
Exactly. And sometimes you find the deepest meanings in the most unexpected places, like a hip-hop album.
And that's what the deep dive is all about. Thanks for joining us as we explored Get Rich or Die Tryin'. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.